Welcome back to Homesteading with the Zimmermans, where each week we give you another episode of what's happening here on our Northeast Iowa 21-acre homestead. My husband Alvin and I have been married for 25 years, and we have 7 children. 5 of those children still live at home. Our oldest 2 are married and no longer live at home, so this means we also have 2 son-in-laws and 1 grandson so far. So on our 21-acre homestead, we seek to preserve the self-sufficient lifestyle of our Old Order Mennonite heritage for the next generation. We involve the children in every aspect of the homestead, from raising and harvesting our own meat, gardening and preserving to fill the family's larder, or preserving the dairy from the family milk cows, plus all the many other skills that develop the character and integrity and relationships of a family that seeks to bring glory and honor to their Heavenly Father. Good morning, friends. I am back by the cheese pot this morning, and 3, 4, 5, and I'm out of citric acid. Today I'm going to be showing you family dinner. So kind of my theme for the winter month of our channel is cooking from our larder. So making meals without having to go to the grocery store. Last week I showed you lasagna, and we had that for family dinner. And if you've been here a while, you know that family dinner is when our married children come over, and I make special effort to make a nice big meal. Throughout the rest of the week, we might, eat a little less elaborately. We might eat more vegetable soup or chicken noodle soup or, quesadillas, or even oftentimes we have, eggs and bacon for supper. But family dinner is kind of my redemption night, where I use our ingredients and make them special. So today we are making meatball subs. So mozzarella is the kind of cheese that we like to put on our meatball subs, and it's time for me to make a large pot of mozzarella so that I can put some in the freezer for future use, and then I wouldn't have to start from scratch every time I want mozzarella. So today I'm going to be using, I have 4 gallons of milk in here, and I'm going to make a 4-gallon batch of mozzarella cheese. And I'm not going to make you sit through the entire process of mozzarella, since I just showed that last week. But I do need to get this started, because I need for this to chill so I can shred it. And when I'm making family dinner, it's more about time management than anything else. So I have to break it all down in my head and be like, okay, what do I have to start this morning? And what can I, wait to start till after lunch? So I'm going to make my homemade, I'm going to use my hamburger bun recipe and make like sub buns. And those are best when they're fresh. So I'm going to wait to bake those until after lunch. And I'm going to get the meatballs on the smoker, because I want to make smoked meatballs, so that I can start this morning. And then the dessert, which I'm so excited to show you, is going to be apple roll-ups, which is kind of my twist on apple dumplings. And that is quite time consuming. But they're best when they're fresh baked. So this afternoon is going to get really busy, and I'll probably end up doing just filming and then doing voiceover, because I can work faster that way. But for now, we're going to let my mozzarella start acidifying. I'm going to let that citric acid work on the mozzarella, and we're just going to bring it very slowly up to temperature. And while that is happening, I am going to hang laundry on the line to dry and work on my meatballs. So if you've been here a while, you know that I do laundry every Monday and Friday. And when the weather on those days happens to be pleasant, I am thrilled. On this day, the temperature was about 18 degrees Fahrenheit and sunny. So I knew that it would be a good day to dry my laundry outside, especially the heavier pieces like jeans and towels and some of the, bigger cotton t-shirts. But as you can see here, I am hanging my laundry the way I do in the wintertime, giving each piece its own 2 clothespins and plenty of room for airflow between the pieces, because my sunshine hours are limited this time of year and the temperatures are cold, so I need all the airflow around each piece of laundry that I possibly can get in order for them to dry before the sun goes down. I have previously filmed a video all about laundry, how I manage laundry and a lot of hanging laundry to dry tips. So if you're interested in knowing more about what clothespins to use and things like that, I will link that video in the description, and I'll also see if I can have that one play next for you. So I threw the smaller pieces of laundry into the dryer, and all of the heavier pieces like sweatshirts and towels and jeans are hung to dry. All right, my milk is slowly warming up. Last week it warmed up way too fast for me, but this week I have a much bigger pot, and so that's warming up a lot slower, and that means the milk is acidifying, which makes for a great mozzarella. Okay, so while our cheese continues to heat up, I am going to put together my meatballs, and you can honestly use any meatloaf recipe and turn it into meatballs. So I am going to link my little cheddar loaves recipe in the description, and that is the recipe that you can use for meatballs, or your favorite meatball recipe if you have one. Well, there I go, making a mess. Those onions just fell on the floor. I am not going to put the cheese in this recipe because we're going to have cheese on top of our subs. So I'm going to use the little cheddar loaves recipe and omit the cheese. So whenever I want to make meatballs, I want my onions chopped very, very tiny because I don't want big chunks of onions keeping my meatballs from sticking together properly. So I want to make sure my onions are chopped very fine. So this is by far not my favorite chopper, but I had a favorite one and we lost a part to it, and I thrifted that one thinking that it would take place of my favorite one, but it absolutely does not. I think I would have been faster just chopping them by hand. And then I'd only have a knife to wash. So I don't think that my recipe for little cheddar loaves calls for garlic, but I am feeling like garlic today, so I am going to I'm adding 2 cloves of crushed garlic. And if my cooking, the cooking portion of this channel, if it inspires you in any way, I hope it inspires you to take my recipes and go rogue and make them your own. And so you all know I've been working on a cookbook, and that is how I'm designing my cookbook too, is to inspire people to make my recipes their own and go rogue with them. Try new things. Become confident in your cooking skills. Okay, so we've got the garlic. So we've got the onions and garlic. Those are the important parts. Now I'm going to add the eggs, and I have 2, 4, 6, I have 7 pounds of meat in here. So guys, don't be offended if I'm not following the recipe perfectly because I'm just kind of doing it by memory. So if it's not perfect, that's why. I'll know it if I need to add more eggs, and now I need milk. So I'm adding the milk, but it's mostly cream because I'm pouring it right off the top. And then I'm going to add 1 teaspoon of salt for every pound of meat that I have. And if you've been here a while, you know that I really love to cook with black pepper. It's one of my favorite spices. So I'm going to add 3 teaspoons of black pepper. And we're going to start mixing this together. This is the tool I want. All right, I'm going to go in with my hands, but I've learned from experience, people really don't like to watch me mix things with my hands. So I'm going to mix this all together with my hands, and then I'll be back. Okay, so some recipes, my recipe calls for oats, but you can use oats or breadcrumbs interchangeably. But you do not have to buy breadcrumbs. I'm going to show you how I make breadcrumbs. It works best to use frozen bread. These are some leftover breadsticks that I found in the freezer. And then I'm slicing this loaf of sourdough that I wasn't real happy how it turned out. I mean, it's not terrible, but I wasn't real happy with it. So I am going to slice this and use some of this to make breadcrumbs, and I'm just going to put it in the blender. And we are going to turn these into breadcrumbs. And there we go. We have beautiful breadcrumbs. So what the breadcrumbs really help to do is they just keep your meatballs or your meatloaf from shrinking. It kind of stabilizes it a little bit. The eggs help bind it together. And then the breadcrumbs or oats, if you're using quick oats, or even sometimes I put in some flour, it just helps things bind together a little more and keeps things from shrinking and falling apart. I've definitely made this recipe without a binder like breadcrumbs or oats or flour, but because I want these meatballs to really stick together because we want to put them in subs, I decided to use some breadcrumbs. All right, we are ready to turn this into meatballs. First, I have to clean up a little bit. Okay, so I'm using my cookie scoop to make the meatballs. I really wish I had the next size up, a much bigger one, because the meatballs will shrink a little bit, but I also don't want them huge because I want them to fit into our subs, into, the bread I'm going to make. So I'm just going to use my cookie scoop and I'm going to round them a little bit, kind of like this. And I'm going to layer them all in here. And to really get them to stick together, it's helpful to kind of smush them. I don't want that big piece of onion in there. I'm gonna adjust my method as I go. Okay, I don't want that hand messy, so I'm going to do this, and then I'll come back and roll them. Okay, now that the meatballs are done, I am going to get my smoker fired up. And I'm gonna set my smoker to 250 degrees. We're gonna let that heat up. Elvin filled it up with pellets for me. So you could absolutely bake these in the oven. If you if you don't have a smoker or just don't want to mess with the smoker, just bake them in the oven. I'm using the smoker because Elvin loves when I use his smoker, and the family really loves the taste of smoked meatballs. But if you put them in the oven, you can easily just add a little bit of liquid smoke to your meatballs, and they'll taste smoky. But it'll make the family happy to make them this way. All right, guys, look at that. Our milk is at 187.3 degrees. I don't want to toot my own horn, but my time management skills are on point this morning. So while the smoker heats up, we're going to add the rennet to our milk, and we're going to move ahead with the mozzarella. So I have 4 gallons of milk this morning, so I need a whole teaspoon of calf rennet. And it looks like I need to order both citric acid and calf rennet because my rennet, I only have about 1 teaspoon left. And I'm gonna start moving this milk around, and then I'm slowly going to add my calf rennet into my moving milk. Stir this well, make sure I put the rennet all the way to the bottom. And we're gonna let that set, and we'll come back in 10 minutes and check for coagulation. So now we're just gonna let these meatballs smoke as long as it takes for their internal temperature to reach about 165 degrees Fahrenheit. So I'm gonna head to the shop and bring in the last of this year's apples to start working on our dessert. Now, some of these apples are too far gone. That's okay. We're just gonna put them right here in this way, and the pigs, that one I'm probably gonna try and save. The pigs will be so happy to go apple bobbing in that warm way when the kids come home from school. So I do have a little gadget that peels and cores my apples and even slices them, but I find it to be so relaxing to stand at the sink and peel and core and dice apples. Plus, then I only have a knife to wash and not the gadget just kind of makes a mess. I use it when I put my apples in the dehydrator, but for something like this, I just really prefer to do it by hand, manually, whatever you want to call it. And because I'm not quite ready to use these apples, I just put a couple tablespoons of lemon juice in the water to keep them from turning brown. So it is shortly after 2 o'clock, and it's time for me to really get busy and knock these last couple things off my list, like the buns, the hot dog buns that I want to make, and the dough for the apple roll-ups. And we've done family dinner for I want to say the last 5 years, and I had started getting a little relaxed about it and waiting, till the kids come home from school. But then I noticed that the school children, the ones that still live at home, stopped loving family dinner so much, because to them, it just meant a whole lot more work when they came home from school. So I've started being more intentional about making it special for the younger children as well, by not burdening them with the work that family dinner is. So the last couple weeks, I have tried to do everything that I can before they come home from school, so that I don't have to be like, hurry up, we got to get this done and we got to get that done. And they get to enjoy family dinner a little more that way too. So I'm going to get my butter churning while I make my dough. The first thing I'm going to make is my pastry dough for my apple roll-ups. I need 4 cups of flour, 3, 4. Need some baking powder. I'm, of course, making a double recipe. What much? 2.5 teaspoons. So that's almost a tablespoon. So I'm just going to use scant 2 tablespoons of baking powder for my double recipe. Okay, mix like pie dough and roll out like cinnamon rolls. 2/3 cup shortening. Does it get any salt? Oh yeah, 1/2 teaspoon of salt. So I'm making it double, so that means I need 1 1/3 cups of shortening, but I'm going to use lard. So there we've got our we're going to say that's 1 1/3 cup of shortening. I can adjust everything else as I go. If it's too much shortening, I'll just add more flour. I know what this dough is supposed to feel like, and that's the biggest confidence booster in cooking from scratch. You do it so much that you know what everything is supposed to feel like, and you can just go from there. Like earlier this week, I baked some sourdough bread, and I hadn't baked any sourdough bread probably, it was before Christmas, well before Christmas. And my instincts told me I needed to add more flour because it was too wet, too sticky. And I didn't, because I was out of practice. And sure enough, my bread got kind of flat, but it's okay. Only thing left to put in here is milk. And I'm gonna go scant on that, because I can always add more milk, but I can't take it back out. So this is supposed to come together like a pie dough or a pastry dough, and that also means you want to be very gentle with it. I really got to get in here with my hands to see what this feels like. I'm going to add just a little more milk. All right, this is ready. I wonder what time it is. 2:30. So I could put the apple dessert together and set that aside. I think that's what I'll do. I'll get the dessert all done and set that aside before the kids come home from school. So this recipe is kind of like our family's version of apple dumplings. So now I'm gonna make this syrup to go over the roll-ups, and I need 1 cup of brown sugar, 1/4 cup of butter, and then 1 1/2 cups of hot water, 1/2 teaspoon of cinnamon, and 1/4 teaspoon of salt. And I'm gonna simmer this syrup together for 5 minutes. And then when it has simmered for 5 minutes, I am just going to pour it over top of my apple roll-ups, and then they are ready to go into the oven. And don't forget, this recipe will be linked in the description for you. So I put my marinara sauce in my crock pot, and it's actually my pasta sauce, but I added a little bit more brown sugar, and now that's just gonna turn it into marinara sauce, because marinara sauce is a little sweeter than my pasta sauce. Anyway, so I'm gonna turn this on high and heat this marinara sauce so that when I bring my meatballs in and put them in here, it doesn't cool my meatballs down. And it looks like it's time for me to wash dishes again, and I'm gonna go out and take the temperature of my meatballs. So I'm going to use my fine shredder for this batch of mozzarella, just because I think the fine shred will be a better fit for our smoky meatball subs. So I saved a portion of mozzarella for our meatball subs, and the rest is going to go in the freezer for future dishes that require mozzarella. So while the children work on folding laundry, I am going to start making the buns for our subs. And I am using our hamburger bun recipe, and I will make sure this is linked in the description for you. So my meatballs are up to temperature, so I am going to put them in my marinara sauce that I have had turned on high for the last probably 30 minutes, and we're just going to let the meatballs rest and heat in that marinara sauce from now until we serve them. So my hamburger bun dough is ready, so I'm just gonna start rolling each piece out to make our version of sub buns or big hot dog buns. And you can measure each amount of dough and get all your buns to be the same size, but I really don't care if some are smaller, because some people want a smaller bun and some people want a bigger one. So I'm not measuring mine. I am just letting it happen the way it happens.
Someone just set a place for Winston.
He probably doesn't need one.
Yeah.
He'll just eat off of.
Mom, Dad's home.
Okay. That's a snow plow. See how it pushes the snow?
I need 2 more knives. I don't need a knife. Mom, are you fine without a knife?
I guess. Trucks. Airplanes. Thank you for watching this far in today's video. The rest of what I'm going to show you is in response to somebody's comment on last week's video, or maybe the week before. And the commenter asked if I ever let my hair down and go have fun. And the answer is yes, I do. I just don't normally film when I'm having fun. You guys just see me, doing the teaching, and I film when I teach, but I assure you that I have a lot of fun. So number one is I get a lot of satisfaction out of, milking the cows and creating product, creating good food from that milk, gardening and cooking for the family. All of that gives me a lot of, that's a dopamine hit for me. So I get a lot of joy out of that. But we did go on a vacation in January, and we took the whole family, and I'm going to add some clips to the end of this video just to show you how great of a time we had and how much we loved all being together. Look, there's a dolphin out there.
We found half of a watermelon and we named it Willie.
You got a cracker on your face.
So there you go, guys. Thank you for being here for another week of Homesteading with the Zimmermans, where you never know what we're going to be up to from week to week. We just take you along for the everyday happenings here on the homestead. See you next week.